Welcome back to Homesteading with the Zimmermans, where each week we give you another episode of what's happening here on our Northeast Iowa 21-acre homestead. My husband Alvin and I have been married for 25 years, and we have 7 children. 5 of those children still live at home. Our oldest 2 are married and no longer live at home, so this means we also have 2 son-in-laws and 1 grandson so far. So on our 21-acre homestead, we seek to preserve the self-sufficient lifestyle of our Old Order Mennonite heritage for the next generation. We involve the children in every aspect of the homestead, from raising and harvesting our own meat, gardening and preserving to fill the family's larder, or preserving the dairy from the family milk cows, plus all the many other skills that develop the character and integrity and relationships of a family that seeks to bring glory and honor to their Heavenly Father. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to a midweek episode of Homesteading with the Zimmermans. My name is Ruth Zimmerman, and this is my garden. This is the family's garden, but I call it my garden because I'm the one that takes care of it. So we were busy all weekend celebrating my brother's birthday, but also a family reunion. So all of my siblings gathered, and of course then there's children and grandchildren and a bunch of my mom's great-grandchildren. And so we were gone all weekend. We came home to do chores, but we didn't spend any time in the garden or anything like that. So this morning, it's my priority to get into the garden and harvest what needs to be harvested. What we're going to do today is make some fermented pickles. It's so easy. I don't know if I can fill up a whole 15-20 minute video because fermenting pickles is very easy. But my mom is coming over tonight for supper because she's in town. She lives 1,000 miles from here. So when she's in town, we try to host her. There's 5 of my siblings that live here in Iowa. So we all kind of take turns hosting her. So she's coming over for supper tonight. I don't know yet what I'm making for supper, but that's not a priority. I can figure that out as I go. First is we need to take care of these cucumbers. So if you are canning or fermenting pickles, this is the size that's going to work best because they have little to no water content yet, right? This cucumber is full of water, and no matter what you do with it, it's going to be soggy. So if you can this one, if you slice and can this one, your pickles are not going to be crisp. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you add to your pickling brine. This pickle is going to be soggy. And even if I were to make a cucumber salad with this one, like a vinegar oil salad, the dressing that I make for it would get really runny because it would pull all the water out of this cucumber. So this cucumber has a lot of water content. I probably will give this one to the chickens. This is the size that you want for pickling, or like if you're going to pickle them whole, this is what you want, right? And when I'm canning pickles, this is the size I want. And I'm going to slice them fairly thick because that's how you're going to keep them crisp. But when I'm fermenting them or canning them whole, this is the size I want. So I'm going to sort through these when I get back to the house. And some of these I'm going to make pickle spears out of, and I'm going to ferment spears. And then some, like this one, I'm going to slice, and I'm going to let the kids eat this one I'll make a ranch dressing for them to dip it into. But these are the ones that I'm most excited about. And when you're fermenting pickles, and I want these, you have to pick them at least once a day, if not more often, if you want to pick them like this. Hey guys, popping into this video to remind you that christianbook.com is offering my book, The Heart of the Homestead, at a 40% discount when you use the code RuthAnn. And in addition to the 40% discount, they are offering you a pre-order goodie of the Childhood Chores ebook for free. So they will email you the Childhood Chores ebook for free when you pre-order The Heart of the Homestead. So the first thing I'm going to do is sort my cucumbers by size. So these are the ones that I want to make pickle spears out of. These are the ones I'm going to slice for eating fresh. And then I'm hoping to have enough of these tiny ones to fill a quart jar. One of the keys is to pair similar size cucumbers together, because that way they will ferment at the same rate. And if you noticed, you don't want to scrub your veggies that you want to ferment, because you want to let the natural bacteria on the cucumbers, because that is what gets your ferment started. And then the salt that you add keeps them from spoiling. So you can put almost anything you want into your fermented pickle jars. I like to throw some garlic in the bottom. In a quart jar like this, I like to put 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, but I've made them without garlic too. And then these are my favorite, I'm just gonna start stacking these in here. I usually start with the fat ones, because the skinny ones I can fit in between the fat ones. And before I get this jar full, I'm going to put this dill in. You can either use dill weed or like dill like this, dill seed. Either one works. So I'm just gonna stick that down in there. And I just washed my jars well. Hot soapy water is all I need to sanitize my jars, because glass is not porous, so it doesn't hang on to, like plastic would. It doesn't hang on to bacteria or pathogens like glass would. Okay, there is 1 quart of tiny ones. It's always my goal to get at least a quart of tiny ones, but if I'm here every day, then I can pick more often. Okay, so this is ready for my saltwater brine. I'm just gonna set these over here in the shade, and then these 2 jars I'm going to fill with the pickle spears that I'm gonna make with these bigger ones. But first I'm gonna put my garlic in the bottom of the jars. So one of the things about learning to ferment, the biggest comments I always get from people in the comment section is, oh, I wish I loved fermented foods. You probably do. Your palate, your taste buds just aren't accustomed to it. Because years ago, this is the way our grandparents preserved a lot of their food. And your taste buds need a long time to get accustomed to healthy foods. So if you want to replace expensive probiotics in your life with homegrown fermented foods, the best thing to do is to tell yourself you're going to eat something fermented every meal, or at least every day. Start with every day. You're going to eat something fermented every day for a month, and then see if you like it or not. We, as Americans that are used to convenience foods, we get so accustomed to putting something in our mouth and getting that wow effect that comes from artificial flavor enhancers and additives. And that's what we think foods should do for us. We think that we're going to put them in our mouth and our taste buds are going to go, wow. And it's not that way. The invention of flavor enhancers and food additives that make things pop in your mouth, make your taste buds get happy. That was the biggest step away from nutrition that the food industry has ever taken. Because nutrition, your body craves nutrition, but the dopamine hit of those flavor enhancers overrides your body's craving for nutrition. And so everybody thinks that if foods don't do that wow in your mouth, then you don't like them. And in reality, you are just addicted to flavor enhancers that give you that dopamine hit. So understanding that is your first step towards eating for nutrition rather than eating to please your taste buds. And I try to have that narrative with my children where I say you cannot only eat your favorite foods. You have to sometimes choose things that your body, I'm going to leave this in case I need another jar. You have to choose things that your body needs over what your brain, what the dopamine center in your brain is telling you want. Anyway, that is my little education, my little soapbox for today. And I'm going to start making pickle spears out of these. Okay, just for fun, I'm going to, remember how I was telling you about the water content? So this is a prime pickle for slicing and canning. You can see how little water content it has. Now let me cut this one. This is the big one that I told you I would probably give to the chickens. See, all of this in here is water content, and that's just going to get very, very soggy no matter what we do with it. This one you can tell has some water content in it. I should leave that one. Also, the other way to measure is, see, they're too long for my quart jar. So I should have sliced this one for the kids to eat as a snack, but this one I'm just going to cut off this big watery end, and then I'm going to make pickle spears out of it. And this one's going to fit into my jar. So for this one, I'm just going to cut off that big watery end because you can tell that's going to be limp and soggy. Are you done with your dishes, Kendrick? Sure. Okay. You have to come do them as soon as you're done playing ball, right? Now I'm just going to lay my jar on the side, and I am going to stack these pickle spears in here. All right, so that one's ready for salt brine. All right, I think that I'm going to go get another wide mouth quart jar because I have some more nice ones. I think I can make another quart of pickle spears. Okay, so you can add, you simply can add garlic and dill like I said earlier, or you can add mustard seed or bay leaves or anything like that. I'm simply going to add a little bit of this pickling spice because I know that my family loves pickling spice when I can my pickles. So I'm just going to add some of this pickling spice into my ferments. And now we are ready to make the saltwater brine to put in these pickles. So how I start thinking, okay, how much water do I need? So this is a 1 quart jar, which is 4 cups would be 4 cups, but I have them filled with pickles. So in my experience, you only need about 2 cups of brine once you have your jar stuffed. So 2, 4, 6, I need about 8 cups of brine to finish these. Okay, so you need to make your salt brine, you need 2 tablespoons of salt for every 1 quart of water. And I have 2 quarts of water here, so I need 4 tablespoons of salt. And you don't want to use chlorinated water. Was that 3? 1, 2, 3, I think this is 4. You don't want to use chlorinated water or iodized salt, because that will kill your fermentation process. And some recipes will ask you to heat your water so that your salt dissolves and then cool your water again. But it's much simpler for me just to use room temperature water and stir the salt until it's dissolved. And I'll come back and stir this some more. I'll let it set and then I'll stir it some more. Okay, so then once your salt is all dissolved, you're just going to fill each jar until it covers your product. I don't worry too much about headspace. I worry more about covering my product. Looks like I need to make some more brine, which is not a big deal. All I'm going to do is do the math and figure out how much salt I need for about another 1 cup of water. So the next thing I'm going to do is grape leaves. I'm going to tuck these all in with some grape leaves, because grape leaves contain something called tannins, and that helps the cucumbers stay crunchy. And it's also going to help the cucumbers stay under the brine. Tuck these in there. Some of my spices are floating, but that's okay. I've heard that oak leaves work for this as well. And then I'm going to put these glass weights on top because I bought them when I first started fermenting. But if you don't have those glass weights, don't worry. Your grape leaves or oak leaves are going to be enough to hold your pickles under the water. So, but sometimes as veggies start fermenting, they float to the top. And so this one's not going to have a weight because I don't have another one. I have these lids too that I like. You don't have to have these. You can easily just mark your lids or whatever you're using. But I mark these with the date. That way I know what date I started fermenting them on, and I have a better idea of how long to let them ferment, or where we're at in the fermenting process. Today's the 14th.
So in between the 3rd and the 5th?
Somewhere between the 13 and 14, yeah. Yeah, you think you can turn them, but it just works. And these are also venting lids, so you can see here, this naturally burps the jars, because if you put a regular lid, you can absolutely ferment without any of these gadgets. The only thing you would do differently is you would somewhere mark, so you know what date you started, somewhere on the calendar even. And then if you didn't have a weight, you would just put a grape leaf on to keep them down. And if you didn't have these lids, you could just use a regular canning lid and open them once every day and kind of let the air bubbles get out, because air bubbles will be created as the cucumbers ferment. But this is kind of a hands-off way for me to do them. I'll just set them and put them in the fridge. So these smaller ones are going to be just right in 3 days max. Some of these bigger ones, I let them set a little longer, just because it takes longer to ferment the bigger, when there's more cucumber flesh, it takes longer for them to ferment. Now I'm going to bring out one of the ones I did last week. Okay, so this is a fully fermented jar of pickles. So don't get alarmed. They're going to start changing color. I didn't want you to leave this video thinking that this is what your fermented pickles are going to look like. They are going to change color and look like this when they're all done. Now, it's up to you how long you want to ferment them, how you want them to taste. So these little ones, I did these last week. See how perfect this is? I could eat a whole handful of these. So you'll, use a fork and get one out, and if it still tastes raw like a cucumber, you'll let it go another day. And a lot of the how long is it going to take you? A lot of that's going to depend on how warm your house is. We don't use our AC out here in the country barely at all, so my house gets pretty warm, and so my pickles ferment pretty fast. But yeah, these are really good. I think there's a couple more in here. So I'm on this in the summertime. One of the other reasons I like to ferment things is because it's like small batch canning. Like if I wouldn't have been filming, this would have taken me about 30 minutes to get these preserved for winter. And then so last year I preserved quite a bit. Last year I fermented quite a bit. I did this learn to ferment or something on my YouTube channel, where every week I learned to ferment something new. And then I was able to kind of go back and decide what I liked best. Well, pickles, I grew up eating canned pickles, so adding pickles to a meal as a side is very natural to me, and it's how I grew up. So switching from canned pickles to fermented pickles is my goal this year. And so one of the challenges that I know I'm going to run into is space in my refrigerator. So I have a milk fridge out in the shop, and then my house refrigerator, if you or anything like me, that one's always full with the things that we need on a daily basis, right? But then I remembered that our guest house is going to have a refrigerator in too. So my goal is to use the guest house refrigerator to store all my ferments in. So as long as my cucumbers keep producing, I'm going to keep fermenting cucumbers. But in the next couple weeks, I will probably do canning cucumbers. Canned pickles, the way that my mom used to, just to show you guys and to have some of those on hand for special occasions or when we have guests. Because when you can pickles, it's a salt and vinegar and sugar brine. And fermented pickles are nutrition. Canned pickles are just going to be for a treat. But this is where the real nutrition lies. And one of the other things I want to tell you, if you don't have as many cucumbers getting ready at a time, you can pick them and store them in the refrigerator until you've collected enough to fill a jar. So just put them in a bag and put them in the refrigerator. I wouldn't seal the bag. I usually just use a shopping bag and put them in there until I've collected enough to fill a jar, or like when I'm canning, I've collected enough to do a canner full. Okay, we are going to make some ranch veggie dip for those cucumbers that were too big to ferment. So I've got some mayonnaise in here. I'm going to add some clabber, and then I'm going to add some of my homemade ranch dressing mix. I'm going to add about 1/8 cup of ranch dressing mix.